Welcome to Life Stories, where we dive into personal journeys of resilience, discovery, and transformation. Today, we share the story of Sarah Bennett, a woman who was once overlooked by her family and written off as a failure. Inherited with nothing more than a desolate ranch in the desert, Sarah discovers an extraordinary legacy hidden beneath the surface. This is a tale of proving others wrong, finding one's true potential, and building a legacy that changes the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe to start today's story with us. Let's begin this inspiring journey together. I never truly belonged to the world that my family inhabited. My name is Sarah Bennett, and I am the younger daughter of James and Victoria Bennett. Two towering figures in the world of finance. To the outside world, we were the embodiment of wealth, power, and influence. My parents' names echoed across the corridors of Wall Street. Known for their strategic investments and uncanny ability to grow fortunes, they controlled a vast empire, their business valued in the hundreds of millions, with investments stretching across multiple sectors. From tech to energy, they were giants, and I was their afterthought. It wasn't that I was unloved. Not in the conventional sense. My parents were proud of their firstborn, Charlotte. Charlotte was the picture of perfection, a brilliant mind, graceful, poised, and above all, immensely suited for the life they had carved out for her. She spoke the language of high finance fluently, attended Ivy League schools, and had the ambition of someone who was destined to carry their legacy forward. She was their ideal heir, the crown jewel in their legacy. I, on the other hand, was always the odd one out. I never quite fit their vision of the future, their immaculate plans, their pursuit of power and influence. Instead of following in their footsteps, I pursued a different path. One that wasn't as glamorous or immediately rewarding. My passion lay in sustainable energy and tactical consulting. It was an area that both fascinated and repelled my parents in equal measure. They would have preferred I dive into high-stakes MBA programs or take up roles managing portfolios of high-profile clients, profitable, prestigious work. But I wasn't interested in any of that. I had different dreams, different ideals. I believed in the power of clean energy, the importance of reducing our carbon footprint, and the potential for new technologies that could help save our planet. To them, it was a waste of time, a field that didn't offer the glimmer of wealth or status that they cherished so much. They didn't have to say it for me to know. I was a disappointment to them. Their disapproval wasn't always expressed openly, but it was palpable. The looks exchanged at family gatherings, the subtle dismissals, the cold silence after I spoke about my projects, they all told me the same thing. They couldn't see me accomplishing anything extraordinary. They couldn't see me carrying on their legacy. In their eyes, I was simply unimportant. When they died, it was swift, almost merciless. A tragic plane crash on their way to Los Angeles left me standing alone, thrust into a world of mourning and confusion. The media stormed the event, as the public celebrated their achievements, their impeccable careers, the extraordinary lives they had led. It was all too much. But what hurt the most wasn't the grandiosity of the media coverage or the endless stream of articles praising their triumphs. No, what hurt the most was the knowledge that my parents left this world without ever recognizing my true potential. They never truly saw who I was, or what I could become. The reading of their will was a moment I will never forget. I was sitting at a polished mahogany conference table in a plush Manhattan law office. The sunlight streaming through the windows, reflecting off the gleaming surface. It was as if the entire room, the furniture, the walls, the air itself, was designed to reflect the family's wealth and reputation. But it was all just a facade. I sat at the edge of the table, tense, my heart pounding. My sister Charlotte, ever the picture of calm and superiority, sat across from me. She was wearing the finest couture, carrying herself with the kind of confidence only someone raised in privilege could manage. Aunt Margaret, our family's trusted fiduciary, was present as well, scrutinizing every word, every detail, as if this moment were a mere transaction to her. Then, the lawyer, Mr. Green, adjusted his glasses and began reading the will. He started with the family assets, investments, stock holdings, the Manhattan penthouse, and the liquid assets. All of them were transferred to Charlotte. My sister's lips curled into a smug grin as she absorbed the news. Her eyes flickered toward me, her gaze laced with a mixture of triumph and condescension. I tried to keep my composure, though inside, I was dying. I was prepared for the worst. But somehow, I still held out hope that I would receive at least a fraction of the fortune my parents had amassed. A part of me still wanted to believe that they hadn't completely written me off. But then came the second part of the will. To our younger daughter, Sarah Bennett, we leave the Bennett Ranch in Arizona. The room fell silent, a deafening, oppressive silence. Charlotte's giggle shattered it, an almost cruel sound that rang through the room. It was a laugh filled with mock sympathy, dripping with disdain. Well, Sarah, she said, I guess they figured you'd be better at handling livestock than you would money. The words stung, but they weren't just hurtful because of their cruelty. They were hurtful because they were true in their eyes. They had always seen me as the daughter who would amount to nothing. The ranch in Arizona was nothing more than a dusty, forgotten piece of land, a waste of space in the middle of a barren desert. The inheritance felt like a final, malicious jab, a reminder that I wasn't worthy of their legacy, their success. Aunt Margaret's face betrayed mild astonishment. Though her loyalty to the family was unwavering, she didn't say anything, she just tightened her lips. Perhaps a little uncomfortable with the disparity between the inheritance I had received and the massive fortune that had been passed on to Charlotte. But in the end, it didn't matter. They had made their judgment, and I had been cast aside. I could feel my breath catch in my throat, a wave of humiliation crashing over me. It wasn't just the money or the assets I was denied. It was the rejection, the finality of it all. The knowledge that my parents had left this world without ever seeing who I was or what I was capable of. Charlotte stood, placing a hand on my shoulder in what was supposed to be a gesture of compassion. But it felt more like a patronizing gesture. If you ever find yourself short on cash, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, feel free to reach out. I'm sure we can work something out. At a fair interest rate, of course. I forced myself to smile, though I could feel my nails digging into the palms of my hands. My entire body trembled with anger, hurt, and disbelief, but I refused to show any of it. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. They wanted me to fail, and they were convinced I would. But little did they know, I was determined to prove them all wrong. I left that office that day clutching a single envelope containing the deed to the ranch and a rusty, ancient key. No trust fund, no stocks, no inheritance from the Donovan Empire. Just a desert ranch. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this land than I had been led to believe. And I would soon find out just how wrong my family had been about me. 3 days later, I found myself standing at the entrance of the Bennett Ranch in Arizona. The heat was overwhelming, the kind that made your skin feel as if it were slowly baking in an oven. I had rented an old, battered truck and driven across endless stretches of highway, the desert stretching on in all directions like a sea of dry, cracked earth. It was hard to imagine anything of value existing here. In this vast, desolate expanse, it seemed to reflect everything my parents had thought about me: barren, useless, a dead end. But something stirred within me as I approached the ranch. I had always felt a strange connection to this place, even though I hadn't spent much time here growing up. My grandfather, Edward Bennett, had been the one who believed in me when I was small. He was the one who told me stories about the ranch, stories that painted it not as a waste of space but as a land full of potential. He used to talk about experimental projects he worked on, things that people had called ahead of their time. I didn't know if I believed in all of it when I was younger. But I remembered the look in his eyes as he spoke about this land. It wasn't the way my father talked about it, dismissively, with scorn, but with a sense of pride and optimism. When I arrived at the ranch, it was just as I remembered, a decaying two-story house that seemed to lean slightly to one side. Steps so fragile they creaked under the lightest touch, and windows whose shutters had warped in the desert wind. The place was neglected, dusty, and crumbling, but there was an undeniable energy here. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something else, something ancient. Like the land itself was whispering secrets waiting to be uncovered. I didn't waste any time. I rummaged through the old furniture, flipping through pages of forgotten books, hoping to find something that would make sense of my parents' strange choice to leave this place to me. But it was when I turned my attention to the barn that I felt a spark of something more, something that made my heart race. The barn was far larger than I had remembered. It had been reinforced over the years, but not in the way you would reinforce a simple barn. This structure had been built with purpose, as if it were meant to safeguard something more important than just farming tools or livestock. I felt a sense of urgency as I made my way inside. The barn door creaked and groaned as I opened it, and when I stepped inside, the faint light from the cracks in the walls revealed rows of old crates, dusty ledgers, and tools, lots of tools, some of which looked far too advanced for a simple ranch. But it wasn't just the contents that intrigued me. The layout of the barn itself felt strange, as if it were designed to conceal something. The space seemed larger than it should have been, as if there were hidden areas waiting to be explored. And then, as I stood there taking in the scene, a memory surfaced, a memory from my childhood. My grandfather had once taken me to this very barn and told me a secret. I had been too young to understand it at the time. But now, with my heart racing in my chest, I remembered his words clearly. He had sworn me to secrecy, telling me there was a hidden chamber in the barn. He'd explained how to find it, tapping on the northern wall 3 times. Then pushing the 4th plank upward. I could almost feel his presence in the air around me, urging me to follow his instructions. My heart pounded as I approached the northern wall. I tapped 3 times, as he had told me, and then I pushed on the 4th plank. To my amazement, it slid away effortlessly, revealing a narrow passage leading downward into the darkness. I stood there for a moment, my mind racing, before I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Taking a deep breath, I descended the staircase. Each step creaked under my weight. But the air down here was different. It was cooler, almost too cool compared to the heat above. The walls were reinforced with a combination of steel and concrete, meticulously constructed, as though someone had gone to great lengths to build something meant to last. At the bottom of the stairs, I found myself standing in a massive underground chamber, something that looked more like a laboratory than anything related to a farm. The air was musty, and the room was filled with filing cabinets, desks covered with geological charts, and shelves stacked with papers and equipment. The walls were lined with crates labeled with strange words like "successful trial" and "new composite." There was something eerie about it, as though I had stumbled onto something that had been hidden for decades. And then I saw it, at the far end of the room. Behind a thick layer of dust, stood a vault door. My mind raced. This was no ordinary ranch. This place had been a secret. A project that no one outside of my grandfather's closest circle knew about. I walked toward the vault with shaking hands, my heart pounding in my chest, wondering what I might find on the other side. I approached the vault with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The door, though aged and covered in dust, was remarkably sturdy, with old-fashioned locks that looked as though they had been untouched for years. I knew this was something important, something monumental that had been hidden from the world for far too long. My mind raced as I fumbled for the correct combination to open it, unsure of what I might find inside. For a brief moment, I considered calling someone, perhaps Charlotte or Aunt Margaret, to come and witness this discovery with me. But as soon as the thought crossed my mind, I knew better. This was my discovery. This was my inheritance. Whether they liked it or not, I couldn't allow anyone else to claim it, to take what had been hidden here for so long, and use it for their own gain. This was mine. The future of this land, of this ranch, was mine to shape. With trembling hands, I tried a few combinations. My grandfather had been meticulous about his work, and I trusted that he had left me a clue, something to guide me. Then, a sudden thought hit me. Perhaps the key was my own birth date. I tried it, To my surprise, the lock clicked open. Inside the vault, there was no treasure chest filled with gold coins or jewels. Instead, I found something even more valuable. There, in the dim light of the underground laboratory, sat an old USB drive and a letter in my grandfather's handwriting. The letter, shaky and worn with age, read, "Sarah, I've safeguarded this project from relentless profiteers. But I've always trusted that you would find it. On this USB are the complete patents and methods for lithium extraction from the land beneath the ranch. Protect it with your life. In the wrong hands, it could bring untold harm. But in the right hands, it could usher in an era of cleaner energy for our world. You must decide what to do with it. Edward." I stood there, frozen in place, the weight of his words settling in. My grandfather had spent his final years working on something far greater than anyone had ever realized. He hadn't been wasting his time, as my father had once claimed. He had been on the cusp of a monumental discovery, a discovery that could change the future of energy and technology. He had uncovered a massive lithium deposit buried beneath the ranch, a resource that was in high demand for electric vehicles, renewable energy systems, and advanced battery technologies. The significance of this find was undeniable. The lithium deposits my grandfather had discovered were among the richest in the country, perhaps even the world, and yet, my parents had dismissed this ranch as nothing more than a worthless piece of land. They had no idea what was beneath their feet. And now, it was up to me to bring it to light. As I read through the documents on the USB, my heart raced with the possibilities. My grandfather's methods for lithium extraction were revolutionary, designed not only to maximize efficiency but also to minimize the environmental impact of the extraction process. It was exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach that the world needed, especially in an age where the demand for clean energy and sustainable solutions was growing by the day. I knew what I had to do. This discovery wasn't just about me proving my worth to my family or to anyone else. It was about protecting the future of our planet. It was about ensuring that this incredible resource was used responsibly, without being exploited by those who cared only about profit. This was my moment to make a difference, to honor my grandfather's vision and carry it forward into a new era. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with ideas and plans. I was determined to move forward, to bring my grandfather's discovery to the world in the right way. I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me, not Charlotte, not Aunt Margaret, and certainly not my parents' legacy. This was mine to shape, mine to protect, and mine to transform into something that could change the world. By morning, I had already made up my mind. I would start a new company, one that would be built on the foundation of my grandfather's work. I would call it Eco-Lith Solutions. It would be a company focused on sustainable lithium extraction, one that would revolutionize the industry while protecting the environment. The journey ahead would be difficult. I knew that. There would be obstacles, legal, financial, and personal, but I was ready for them. This ranch, this so-called worthless piece of land, was going to be the birthplace of something extraordinary. And no matter what my family thought, I was determined to prove them wrong. As the weeks passed, Eco-Lith Solutions began to take shape. I assembled a team of experts, geologists, engineers, and lawyers who shared my vision for responsible lithium extraction. We worked tirelessly, fine-tuning the methods my grandfather had pioneered. Slowly, the once dusty Bennett Ranch transformed before my eyes, from a barren desert landscape into a thriving center for innovation and sustainability. The breakthroughs we made were nothing short of extraordinary. With my grandfather's patents secured, we began attracting attention from major players in the renewable energy sector. Soon, the company was making headlines, not for its connections to the Bennett name, but for its potential to revolutionize the lithium industry. We secured partnerships with electric vehicle manufacturers, solar energy companies, and tech giants, all eager to be part of the sustainable energy revolution. But while Eco-Lith Solutions soared to new heights, my family's world began to crumble. Charlotte, once the golden child of the Bennett legacy, found herself caught in a series of financial missteps. The real estate ventures she had been so confident about began to collapse. And soon, she was forced to sell off her prized assets. The penthouse in Manhattan, once a symbol of her success, was put on the market to cover her debts. One evening, Charlotte called me, her voice trembling. She asked if I would sell her back the penthouse. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same sister who had mocked my inheritance, the same one who had dismissed me as incapable, was now asking for my help. But I remained calm. I had no intentions of offering her the sympathy she had so freely denied me. No, I said simply, my voice steady. If you need help, contact Ecolith Solutions. We're doing just fine without you. And with that, I knew I had finally broken free of the shadow of my family. I wasn't their disappointment anymore. I had built something of my own, something that would change the world. If you've enjoyed this journey and want to see more stories of personal triumph and transformation, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring life stories.